Hello, my name is Rishi Grover and I'm the Chief Solutions Architect at Vena Solutions, and it's my pleasure today to give you a brief overview of the Vena application. So let's go ahead and get started. Here I'm going to first log in as a Vena user, and the first role that we're seeing here in the application is the manager user. Vena is a complete planning platform to help streamline and automate all of your finance-led processes as well as your extended planning processes. Because of the Vena approach, we're also able to go beyond planning into many other application areas as it relates to the financial close, such as account reconciliations, your month-end close process, consolidations, and other operational processes as well. So today we're going to be focusing on the budgeting and planning process. So here as a manager, I'm going to open up my folder for planning and analysis, and we're going to look at our annual budgeting folder. Here we can see Vena is very process oriented. So we have completed, as we can see here, the 2020 annual budgeting process 2021, and now we are live in the 2022 annual budgeting process. So as I open this up, you can see here that we have a very visual process flow editor that allows you to create your repeatable workflows for your budgeting process, your forecasting process, and any other process you bring into the Vena application. For us, any process has a start and an end, and in between we define what are all the steps that you need to complete in order to complete your entire budgeting process. So everything we're seeing here is drag and drop. It's completely configurable on how you want to orientate the different steps within the process. All we simply need to do is do a simple right click, and this is where we define what are all of the input requirements, review requirements, and any kind of reporting distribution that you want to do in the application as well. As a power user in the application, or in this case, as example of the budget manager, when the process is live, at any point I'm able to click on the status tracker, and this gives me a live real-time view of where are we, in this case, for the budgeting process. So we can see for every single task that we define for the budgeting process. So this could be, for example, all your different business units that are inputting their data, departments, or what have you, who is working on that step of the process, what is their current status, if they have submitted it for review and approval, what is the review status, and also we can start to track by due dates as well and have a nice summary view here at the top that shows where are we in the entirety of the process. We're going to keep this view open here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle over now as a contributor to the budgeting process. So now as I log in as that contributor, I'm going to be presented with a very simple view that gives me a task list of everything that I'm responsible for. So this will show me all the processes I'm assigned to, because I may be assigned to more than one process in Vena. In this case, it's the 2022 annual budget. And within every process, what exactly are my assigned tasks? And also what this task list will do is it will prioritize all of the tasks that need my immediate attention. I can also segment this list for what are all of my input requirements. As a reviewer, what do I need to review and either approve or reject? And what report packages have been sent to me so I'm able to consume the data, perform reporting, and perform analysis. And at any point, I can always create an ad hoc report in Vena to easily be able to retrieve my data, slice and dice it, and perform analysis in a self-serve manner. So I'm going to come back here to the full list, and let's go ahead and open up our task for expense planning for New York. As I open up this task now, the drawer pops up on the right-hand side, which shows me everything that I need to know to complete my task. So it shows who am I able to collaborate with, because Vena is a very collaborative application as it relates to input, review, and reporting. I have an area to provide my input commentary and notes, and also I may have certain instructions or supporting documentations to help me with my input process. But the most important part here is what are the templates that I'm required to complete for this task in the budgeting process. In this case, I'm going to check out my operating expenses template. Once I check out that template, this will immediately launch Excel. And as you see here, Excel will recognize that this is a file that was launched by the Vena application. And right away now, we provide a whole application experience directly integrated within Excel. So in this case, my security as this user for the contributor is defaulted to New York. I'm unable to view any other location due to my security settings, but within New York, I am responsible and have access to multiple different departments. Here I can start to input my data by sales, services, and so forth. In this case, I'm going to stick with sales. And within Vena, we're also able to do many different scenarios for your input process. So in this case, we're going to focus on the main budget scenario, but keep in mind that we also support your forecasting process. You can have multiple plan scenarios in the examples of your best case, worst case, and we can support an unlimited amount of what if scenarios as well. So here I'm going to select budget for sales for 2022. And now what we can see here is now we retrieve all the data from the Vena application, and now we dynamically populate this centralized template. So you can see here that we populated all the accounts that I'm responsible for inputting for across all the different time periods for the budget year. And also we can see here that the Vena ribbon has loaded, and this now provides that full application experience within Excel, where now I can interact with my data, I can save, I can refresh, I can drill into transactions, I can audit all the changes that have been happening, and also I can enter in commentary and start to allow for collaboration among the different users assigned to this given template. So for this template here, you can see here that we have a few different worksheets. Input is my main worksheet. I also have travel, where I'm able to give some more detailed information in terms of all of my travel expense line items. We also have our analytics worksheet as well. So any kind of charting and graphing and analysis and conditional formatting that Excel supports, Vena directly supports as well. The difference here is that we automate the data feeds and we bring all these charts and graphs to life. Here are a few examples of looking at my total OpExes across different scenarios and different time periods, seeing different breakdowns of my expense categories, and also being able to look at different data points in a predictive sense to see, different seasonal regressions, linear regressions, to see how the system is also forecasting my data as well. So here we're going to come back to the input template. And now for my general operating expenses, I'm going to enter in some quick numbers here for advertising. And let's just do a copy of 6,000 for the entire year. So all of the input functionality you have available in Excel, you also have available in Vena. Things like copy and paste, filling in a formula, fill right, fill down, all of that is available to you directly within the Vena application. But now when we're done with our data inputs, we hit the Vena Save button, and now this data in real time goes right back to the Vena application, to the Vena database, which is now immediately available for reporting, for analysis, and for aggregation of those data points. Also looking over here on the left, we have lots of different methodologies on how we're able to capture that data. So for advertising, we showed some straight user inputs. We're also able to spread the data points. In the example here for computer supplies, I may want my total number to be, let's say, $28,000. And I can select any spread pattern that I may want to use to spread that across the budget year. So this can be any kind of operational data, it can be your previous year data, or any kind of manual pattern that would help with the calculation of that specific expense item. Okay, so here let's go ahead and do it by previous year. So there's that 28,000 now spread exactly by the previous year's data points. And the reason I was able to do that spread by previous year is on this template, I also have my actual data from the previous year, which has been integrated from my GL system or my ERP system. So we're able to bring in both trial balance level data as well as your transactional level data. So in the case for transactional data, if I select, let's say here, for example, my advertising for January of last year, I can do a drill into transactions. And what this will now do is open up a new worksheet on the same master template and now show me here all of the transactions or the invoices where in aggregation makes the number that we saw on the input worksheet. And what we do in Vena as well is we purposely drop this into an Excel table. You can use this as you would normally use in Excel. You can start to sort, you can start to filter, you can put this into a pivot table, you can embed Excel ideas on top of it, completely up to you. Coming back here onto my input template, here we can see that we have a little X that's next to computer supplies. And if I enter in a higher number in my advertising as well, just to demonstrate our validation rules, for both January and February, we see a little X also now next to advertising. So within Vena, we can also embed what we call validation rules to proactively check the integrity of your numbers before we save and submit for review and approval. So here, when I click Save Data, this will now prompt me and say, hey, I have certain expenses. In this case, as we can see, 2 expense accounts that have exceeded that year-over-year threshold of 20% that the manager of the budgeting process has put in place. So in this case, I am not going to save. And we can see here on the right, it's now prompting me to enter in commentary to support my higher numbers. So for advertising, I'm going to say here to reference the Scratchpad worksheet, which I have here on the right, which I have in an ad hoc way provided some more information to help explain why I have that high number for advertising. And then for my computer supplies, I'm going to realize, hey, I actually did make a mistake. I'm going to readjust that to 25,000. So that validation rule has gone. And now when I hit save, we can see here the data is now clean. It's been validated. And also every time we hit save, we audit every change that's happening. And obviously we commit that to the Vena database as well. So now I'm going to close out of this input template. So yes, we want to close out. Let's check it back into the system. And now once I'm done with my inputs, I can now go ahead and click submit. And now what submit will do is move to the next step of the process, whatever that happens to be that we defined in the previous view of the manager when we saw that overall process flow diagram. And the next user will now be email alerted, so they can now log into the system and perform the action that they're required to do. So now when we look into reporting, I'm going to click on my report package here on the left, open up my financial and operational reports. And here we can see we have a variety of different reports, Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, that we have now distributed to our end users, our budget users. So in my example here, I'm going to open up the executive dashboard. And when we open up a report now in Vena, similar to the way that the input template worked, we now launch Excel. Excel dynamically recognizes the stuff file from Vena. And now when I report on my information, you can see here previously we were inputting data for New York, but now when I report, I can pick any level of my hierarchy. So I can look at it by different regions. We also support different alternate roll-ups. So I can look at it by the functional roll-up, by currency roll-up, and other roll-ups that may be applicable. In this case, let's roll up, let's say US and Canada, and I'm going to roll up all of my different departments. We'll stick in the context of 2022 and the budget, keeping in mind that we also, of course, support an unlimited amount of what-if scenarios. So in the Vena application, when you create a what-if scenario, you can make top-down changes, bottom-up changes, you can change your key drivers and assumptions, and then you can use Vena reporting to analyze the impact of those changes. So in this case, I'll simply select our budget. And now the Vena application will now aggregate all of the information and present that now within this Excel report. Excel will do what Excel does best in terms of visualizing the data in different charts and graphs and look at your KPIs, help identify trends through conditional formatting. And in this case here, as you can see, we're bringing in lots of different data sets together now in one unified report. So I can take a look at my financial health of my organization, the operational health, people health, and in this case here also my customer health. As I go down into the details here, I can now focus on the financial perspective of my organization, and now I can start to interact with that data. I can select different data sets so I can understand trends across different scenarios and different years for any different set of accounts that I have available in my data set. And finally here, I can come to my P&L variance report. And every report in Vena, just like our templates, are very dynamic in nature. So here's a variance report where I can select any two sets of data and I can understand its variances. Based on my selection, I can also understand the year-to-date variances as well as retrieve the full year data, so I have the full perspective and understanding of my different variances that we're seeing in this report. So as an example, instead of looking at August, I can toggle here to January, do a quick refresh, and now we bring in real time that data now for January for that column, so now we can start to understand those data sets. When we were inputting our data previously, we were inputting the data for the general operating expenses. So now I can start to see what my actual to budgets are. And if I see a high variance and I want to do some investigation, I can click on this total number. So we're looking at for all of US and Canada, for all departments, for all of my operating expenses. I can now drill down on that value. And what Vena will now do for you is it will show you every single user input where an aggregation made that total number that we saw on that report. So here I can see for every account, by entity, by department for that time period, what were all of those different values. So here, for example, again, we're in an Excel table, so I can very easily start to sort and filter. So if I just focus on my New York entity here, now I can see all my different data points. And here we now recognize that 20,500 that we input in the first step of this demonstration. So now what I can do is a user save, a drill into this user saves, and this will now show me a full data lineage of that intersection point in the Vena application. So we saw in the demonstration today how we moved from a null data point to 6,000 to 20,500. Furthermore, I can drill into that number. And what this will now do is give me full transparency across the application. So now I can view and look at that input template that we first started with. I can understand and see all the different commentary for that user input. I can understand, why they exceeded a certain threshold, what was their explanation. And in this case, we see that I'm being told to reference the Scratchpad worksheet, and I can quickly come here to the Scratchpad and understand exactly why we have that side model that defined the 20,500 for us. And that concludes today's demonstration of Vena Solutions. I hope you enjoyed it, and for more information, please visit venasolutions.com. Thank you.